Now to a story that we have covered a lot on this show, the kidnapper murder of Muriel McKay. Muriel was last seen alive back in 1969. This is my colleague Louise Parry explaining the background, which goes back over 50 years.
Muriel was actually Australian, and she'd moved to London with her husband Alec McKay because he was the deputy to Rupert Murdoch, obviously also Australian. And Mr. Murdoch had been seen on television in the UK speaking about his new newspaper, The Sun. And a group of criminals saw that report and they thought, well, he looks like a wealthy guy, and they thought he would be a good person to try and extort some money from. So they hatched this crazy plan to kidnap Rupert Murdoch's wife. But what happened is he'd loaned the McKay family his Rolls Royce at the time. So these men followed the wrong car all the way to Muriel McKay's front door. And she was abducted from her home in Wimbledon and driven round London and out to East Hertfordshire to a farm called Rooks Farm near Bishop Stortford. Now, obviously, these guys were in newspapers. There was a huge media circus and a massive police operation. But it still took weeks to trace her kidnappers down to Rooks Farm. And in the end, they had enough evidence to convict two brothers, Nizamuddin and Arthur Hussein, but they couldn't find Muriel's body. So in fact, it was one of the first ever murder convictions to take place without a body back in 1970.
It's an incredibly complex story, this one. We have covered this extensively on this show in the last 18 months. There have been some extraordinary events that have taken place. Here's a quick reminder of our coverage. Well, incredibly, Mark and his mother Diane have flown to Trinidad to meet Nizam Hussain, the man who kidnapped and murdered their grandmother and mother back in 1969. I mean, how they found the strength to do this, I will never know. But they've done it because they are desperate for answers. They want Hussein to tell them where he buried Muriel. And just before midnight last night, I recorded this conversation with Mark Dyer.
He hugged my mother. He was overcome with emotion. He sat down on the sofa. He shook my hand. Every night he can't sleep. He hasn't slept for 50 years, this kind of stuff.
This is a really important question now. So where Nizam Hussain is saying your grandmother's body is buried, is that the area that hasn't been searched by the police?
Correct.
Have the police asked you to come to England to show the family where the body's buried?
No, but I'm willing so to do.
But you are definitely willing to come to England to show the family?
Why so? To bring closure.
So the third and final search for the body of Muriel McKay has begun, and today, on day number 2, I've been speaking to Muriel's son, Ian, who is now 82 and has travelled from his home in Australia to be here at the farm.
Well, it's very confronting, and I just think seeing what's going on here at the moment is I guess it's welcome in one way, but we just want to get a result out of all this. On the face of it, this is a nice country lane, but in fact, to me, this is a horror place. We just want to be able to take her home or take her to a new place of rest and in a happier surrounding.
This is desperately sad for Muriel's family because the search has come to an end. I was called down to New Scotland Yard where I spoke to Detective Superintendent Catherine Goodwin. You had the kidnapper, you had the murderer saying that he was willing to fly to England to be at the farm to assist you. He never arrived. Why not?
Throughout this, we've considered whether the right thing to do would be to apply to have Nizamuddin brought over to the UK. Now, obviously, he's been deported. He's convicted kidnapper, murderer.
But you know the family will always argue if you didn't find Muriel, and you didn't, that this job wasn't done properly. You had the chance to close this chapter once and for all. If you said that's where Muriel is and she's not there, that's the end of the story. What did you have to lose?
As police officers, we have to, be absolutely honest in what we're dealing with and clear. And the threshold for seeking to bring a convicted murderer back into the UK has to be high. It has to be absolutely operationally essential.
But you didn't, and the mystery goes on now. So that was then. What about now? Earlier this year, Muriel's family offered a £1 million reward for information that leads to the discovery of her remains. I met Muriel's grandson, Mark, and her son, Ian, in Bethnal Green earlier this week. So Mark and Ian, thank you again for meeting me. Back in June, there was a £1 million reward that was offered. That led to 3 leads. Let's go through them individually. Buntingford High Street. What did you find there, Mark?
We scanned Buntingford High Street and sadly we found nothing of interest there, although we were delighted to have that lead. It was quite an emotional meeting with that woman who had been holding this concern for 54 years. So that we've resolved Buntingford.
The next one is then Crabtree Lane, which is in Stocking Pelham.
Yeah.
I know this one is a really interesting one for you. What have you found there?
So we did find something of interest in the scan, and we did a hand dig 3.5 weeks ago. We're actually there today as we speak. Right. We have a small JCB and an operator. We had to do a search to find out what was underground. We came to some shale, and it wasn't. We wanted to make sure that shale was part of the strata. It wasn't. So we were interested in that. So we're digging through that shale to find out what's there.
Which then leads us on to the third and final lead. We're here at the moment in the East End of London on the Bethnal Green Road. Why is this area so significant to you?
Look, this is the final destination, if I can coin a phrase. This is the third property in the triangle. The triangle being St Mary's House, Wimbledon, Arthur Road, where my grandmother was taken from, to Rooks Farm, Stocking Pelham, where she was taken to and buried by Nizam, according to Nizam, where she was dug up and taken to Bethnal Green Road. Bethnal Green Road was where Arthur Hussein worked as a tailor, and this is a property that he was very much involved with for a number of years. This is, interestingly, where the telephone box was for the first ransom drop. So this is a very poignant place we're parked, and spookily, this is exactly where the car was parked when my mother's imitator or clone, or whatever you'd like to call her, the policewoman who was meant to look like her, went to the telephone box and took a telephone call. And that telephone call was watched by Arthur Hussein out of the window of what was then the tailor's shop. We know that Arthur had the keys to the shop during that period.
So this is where Arthur Hussein worked in the 1960s, one of the brothers convicted of the kidnap and murder of your grandmother and Ian, your mother. Who's come forward with this information?
Well, since we made the £1 million offer, as I said, 3 leads came in, 4 leads, 1 was a drunk. Thank you for that. But the 3 leads were very genuine, and this lead, the children of the previous owner of the shop, came forward. They live in Israel. They emigrated to Israel in the late 70s, and they've lived there ever since. But they're in their late 60s. You know, they're extremely compos mentis people, and their father told them when he was 96, before he died 2 years ago, that he wanted to let them know a secret because he felt it was time, and that he wanted to get it off his chest, and he thought it was only right that when he died, they told the family, us, what happened.
So their father is saying he thinks that Muriel could be behind this shop.
Not only does he say that, they were in the shop the day my grandmother was there, because there was a dreadful smell. They both remember the smell. Everyone talked about the smell. My grandmother, sadly, and I've got Ian here, so I've got to be careful because, you know, I don't want to upset Ian. And that smell was gone the next day. And the father said, "Don't worry, we put that smell in the garden." And he used to talk about a tree. I think, Ian, it's pointing you come in here.
Yes. Well, the father made a comment, apparently to his children, about a year after this event, and said, that cherry tree has grown enormously in the last year. And we think that's an indication that he was indicating where the body had been buried. We think probably there's a little bit more to it than we probably know, and probably the children know, the children of the tailor. But it's pretty compelling stuff. That she was buried here.
So you fully believe your mother could be here, behind this shop. What are you feeling by being here today, Ian? Because let's not forget again, you've flown from Australia. What are you feeling right now?
Well, you can obviously, you can read things into it yourself, but I think that, yes, I do feel pretty strongly. I've been combing through all the information that we have related to Bethnal Green Road, and in fact to the total kidnap over the last fortnight, and it really does seem incredibly credible, the information that we've got from these 2 children who are now in their 60s, late 60s, and I honestly believe all we need to do is scan that backyard, probably take 2 hours, and we'll be able to analyse the information we get from that, and she's either there or she isn't, and I just can't understand why the leaseholder just won't let us in there for a couple of hours.
Well, that brings us on to where we are at the moment then, Mark. So, as Ian was saying there, the leaseholder won't allow you to go and scan the property, and this will be a non-invasive scan. So, if you scan and there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
This would be a completely non-invasive scan. In fact, it's completely harmless. It's a bit of machinery. It'll take a couple of hours. They'll paint a few lines on the ground, and they'll be in and out of there. They'll create a 3D module of the underground up to 7 or 8 feet, and then we're out of there. That's it.
The leaseholders at the moment are saying, we're not giving you access. If they do get to hear this, Mark, what would you like to say to them?
I would say to them, I can see that you're probably frightened by this because it's something you don't expect. And when you buy an old property, you buy history, and sadly, you're sitting on something that you're sitting on the access to something. Sadly, our history, and we just get in the garden, we just need to do a scan. If my grandmother is there, then the police will come and they will dig up the location, and any damages will be made good and any inconvenience we make good. We're determined. We must resolve whether she's there. We have an incredible lead. We have two children who live there and whose father told them the truth before he passed away at the age of 96. This is the hottest lead we've ever had since Nizam. Nizam buried my grandmother at Stocking Farm. No doubt about that. My grandmother was moved. Clearly moved, not by Nizam. But we've spoken to Nizam about this since. He said, the last I left her at the farm. Now, he could be lying. He could have known she was moved. But at the moment, we have to take him on face value. This lead, we have to take on face value.
And Ian, in your 80s, been looking for answers now for over half a century, back over from Australia. What's the plan for you? How long do you plan to stay this time, Ian?
Well, I'm really planning to stay until we're able to get access to the back of that property.
And that feeling, can you imagine that feeling all these years on, if you finally find your mum? I mean, it would just be incredible, wouldn't it?
Well, it will be, because there are other family members involved, and they would all like to say their goodbyes, or they would all like to visit her grave. A lot of them have never met her, but they would like to have an association with her.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So this story has taken me to the East End of London this week. They believe that Muriel is there. It's a gripping story. They just want closure. And look, we always get a big response on this, and we will continue to cover this. And people always ask me, do you think they will find Muriel? Yes, I do. I mean, I thought that from the very first time I met the family. I still feel the same. It may take a while, but this family will never, ever give up. And like all of our stories on this show, just put yourself in their shoes right now. What would you do? Because there'll be some people that say, leave it in the past. But you've got a lead there. You would try, wouldn't you?